I was 12 when my father left me at a homeless shelter on Christmas Eve, clutching a trash bag stuffed with my clothes. It wasn't poverty or desperation that brought us there. His new wife, Linda, didn't want another woman's child in her pristine home. The car ride was quiet except for the faint hum of holiday tunes on the radio. I kept hoping he'd change his mind, that this was just a lesson to behave better around Linda. But when we pulled up to a drab building with people shivering outside, reality sank in. He turned to me and said, "This is just for now until Linda gets used to you being around. I'll always take care of you. You're my son." I clung to those words, even as he handed me the bag, even as the shelter worker shot him a look of contempt, even as his car disappeared down the street. For weeks, I told everyone he'd come back. The other kids at the shelter just shook their heads. They'd heard it all before. But I was certain. My dad had promised. I called his phone daily until it was disconnected. I dialed his office until his assistant said I wasn't on the approved caller list. Then I saw it on the shelter's computer. A Facebook post announcing Linda's first child, Michael, as if I'd never existed. I waited through my 13th birthday, sitting by the shelter's entrance, but no one came. Child Services tried placing me in foster homes, but I kept running back to the shelter, terrified I'd miss him if he returned. They started calling me Shadow because I'd vanish from foster care and reappear at their door. 8 months later, I realized he wasn't coming. He discarded me to start over with his new family. That's when childhood ended and survival began. The streets were a harsh teacher. I learned which diners tossed out fresh food at night, which libraries let you linger if you looked studious, which churches left their bathrooms open for washing up. I haunted the university library, devouring textbooks left behind by students, physics, biology, medicine. A librarian, Mrs. Carter, noticed me. She never pried but started leaving snacks on my table. Those small acts of kindness kept me going. At 16, I fudged my age to land a dishwashing job. I saved every cent, sleeping in a storage unit I rented for $40 a month, illegal but cheaper than any room. Between shifts, I studied for my GAD, poring over medical books while scrubbing pans. My coworkers thought I was odd, but I had a goal. Linda might have taken my father, but she wouldn't take my future. I aced my GED, earned a spot at community college, then transferred to a state university on a full scholarship. My essays about homelessness hitting hard with admissions boards. Medical school was tougher, not the coursework, but the questions. Why no family at graduation? Why a librarian as my emergency contact? I listed my father as deceased. It was easier than explaining. I thrived on 36-hour shifts, having slept in worse places than hospital cots. My peers griped about discomfort. I'd known January nights on pavement. I specialized in kidney medicine, bought a house. A real one with reliable heat and a bed that didn't carry someone else's pain. Then I met Sarah at a conference, her laugh warming me like nothing else. We had a daughter, Emily. I'd built a life from nothing without him. Then my phone rang, an unfamiliar local number. Dr. Brian Thompson. This is Dr. Lee from City Hospital. Your father listed you as his emergency contact. He's in kidney failure. I hung up, blocked the number, but they kept calling. Sarah answered one day and learned the truth. He needed a transplant, and I was a perfect match because Michael, his teenage son, was too young and Linda had health issues. Sarah urged me to at least listen, so I went. Seeing him in that hospital bed after 17 years felt surreal. He looked frail, not the man who'd left me. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Linda, then my father, Richard, then an unknown number. I ignored them, but a text from Linda said Michael wanted to meet his brother, unaware of me until now. Richard's voicemail was raw. He'd failed me, been weak, but Michael was innocent. The manipulation was blatant, but Michael's existence gnawed at me, a kid blindsided by his family's lies. I agreed to meet Michael at a coffee shop. He was there, tapping the table nervously, a mirror of my younger self. He said his parents had told him I'd died, only revealing the truth when Richard needed my kidney. He'd spent the night digging through online records, finding my shelter intake form. Brian Thompson, age 12, abandoned by father due to new marriage. He slid a folder across the table, clippings of my medical school graduation, my published papers. His voice broke as he said I'd built a life from nothing while he'd had everything because our father chose him over me. We talked for hours. I told him about scavenging food, studying by streetlight, surviving on grit. 3 days later, I met with the transplant team for testing, not committing but curious. The coordinator outlined the process. Physical exams, psychological evaluations, weeks of prep. Mrs. Carter called that night, her voice a lifeline. She said she was proud of me, that I'd always been too good for the family that discarded me. In Richard's hospital room, Linda was there, accusing me of enjoying the power I held over them. I stayed calm, though my hands trembled, and said a 12-year-old doesn't need to deserve a parent's care. It's a duty. Richard admitted their business collapsed years ago, their savings gone to Linda's medical bills. Michael's college fund was drained. The room felt suffocating as Linda clutched her purse and Richard knocked over a water pitcher, his hands unsteady. I watched them clean it up, rooted to the spot. Days later at the park, Sarah watched Emily on the swings and asked if saving Richard was worth risking our daughter's father. The question lingered as Michael texted me, grappling with his family's lies, asking about forgiveness. I met with my mentor, Dr. Marcus, who said I had every reason to refuse but asked who I wanted to be. Both promises I'd made, to help others and to never let Richard hurt me again, mattered. The question was which defined me more. The transplant team confirmed I was a perfect match. Richard's condition was worsening. I had a week to decide. Linda ambushed me in the hospital parking lot, Michael in her car, begging for help with Michael's future. I asked if she expected me to fund the life she stole from me. Michael stepped out, telling her to stop. Later, in a hospital hallway, he broke down, hating his parents for destroying me to build their family. I told him we weren't defined by their choices. Sarah found the surgery papers I'd hidden. Her voice cracked as she asked what saving Richard would teach Emily about her worth. Our daughter overheard, her small face scared. I told her grown-ups make hard choices, but I'd never leave her. At my final evaluation, the surgeon, Dr. Patel, asked if I was being coerced. I could have ended it by telling the truth. Instead, I said it was my choice and signed the forms. In Richard's room, he admitted he'd sat in the shelter parking lot for hours after leaving me, nearly returning but choosing Linda's ultimatum instead. I told him I was never complicated, just a grieving kid who needed a father. Days before surgery, Michael showed up at my house, having left his parents' home, unable to stomach their manipulation. Over dinner, he shared stories of their dysfunctional, perfect family, wishing he'd had a sibling to share the weight. Sarah squeezed his hand as I realized he was as broken by their choices as I was. Mrs. Carter invited me over, showing me a photo of teenage me studying in her library. She said Richard didn't deserve my kidney, but this was about the boy who vowed to help others. Linda appeared at my office with legal papers wanting me to waive inheritance rights. I tore them up, saying I'd do this my way or not at all. That day Michael called. Richard had collapsed, fluid in his lungs. The surgery was moved to the next morning. Sarah and Emily stayed with me that night. Michael hugged me, calling me the brother he always needed. As they wheeled me into surgery, Richard whispered an apology. I told him this didn't make us family, it made me the man he wasn't. Waking up, Sarah's smile greeted me. Both surgeries were successful, but the pain was intense. Mrs. Carter visited with a photo album of my journey, reminding me of my strength. Richard, recovering, admitted he drove by the shelter every Christmas, too scared to check if I was there. Weeks later, an infection from the surgery landed me back in the hospital. Sarah was furious, saying I'd pushed too hard to save him. As I fought the infection, I saw Richard walking with a walker, my kidney keeping him alive. Linda visited, confessing her jealousy of my mother drove her to push me out. She revealed Michael wasn't biologically hers, a truth that reframed her desperation. Richard, visiting during my second surgery, joked I shouldn't die saving him. I laughed, saying we don't get what we deserve. Months later, Richard and Linda divorced. She sought custody of Michael, using my abandonment against Richard. In court, I refused to testify, saying Michael, now 16, should choose. He requested emancipation, naming me his guardian. Richard began sending checks for Michael's expenses, which I saved for his college. Michael enrolled in pre-med, inspired by our story, choosing nephrology to understand the organ that connected us. At a conference, I spoke about organ donation, sharing my journey without naming Richard. A young resident, a former foster kid, asked about forgiveness. I told her you don't forgive, you build better from the wreckage. Mrs. Carter's passing left me reflecting on her quiet kindness. At her funeral, I spoke of her legacy in every life I touched. Now in my office, 3 photos anchor me. Me at the shelter, my family with Sarah and Emily, and Michael in his white coat. Richard's calls still come, likely about his kidney. I answer because that's who I am, someone who shows up even when others didn't.